Sometimes when you're looping, you can see the killer through gaps. This can make it more difficult for the killer to mind game you. Hug loops tightly to maximize efficiency while looping. You'll be able to get a lot more rotations around a specific loop if you're hugging the object you're looping closer. If you see a closed door on Hawkins or the game, it's safe to say that there is a generator on the other side. Crouch at windows to bait out or avoid certain killers' attacks. Recognize dead zones and try to actively avoid them while you're looping. Sometimes running into windows can bait the killer into swinging. When you spawn in, try to keep a mental note when you're running around of where are safe pallets and where are areas that you can go to in the event that the killer comes to chase you. You can have a predetermined path in your mind. Okay, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna be able to loop the killer for an hour. Try to shift tech, and basically what shift teching is, it's you're letting go of your running bind while you're looping and you're pretty much walking mid chase, and what this does is it will drop the killer's bloodlust. So if they're chasing you after a while and a while of you just sprinting continuously, when you start to walk, sometimes if you lose line of sight, like dip behind a wall or whatever, all of that time that they've spent chasing you and gaining up the speed from bloodlust, it's going to just go away. If a killer has Lightborn, you can try to go down under a pallet so your team can still save you. Unless you actively go out of your way to dress stealthy, play as if the killer can see you, you blue-haired Nia. Pay attention to the HUD in solo queue. Often it'll give you a lot more information than what you can gather on your own by just playing without comms. Building off of that, you can use the HUD to determine whether or not you should go for a save or stick the gen that you're on. If a killer is tunneling and the person that just recently got off hook gets hooked again, don't instantly go to unhook them as soon as they get rehooked. This is giving the killer a free ticket to hook them again and get them out of the game as fast as possible. You want to try to give your teammates time, especially if they are getting tunneled by the killer. Stop using perks like self-care to heal. Instead, use bond because it will allow you to, one, see your teammates and also heal them as well as they can heal you, and it'll just give you additional information on whoever's not doing anything when you're looping. Use rocks or objects to waste time while looping if you have no other resources left. The main way to counter Michael Myers is to not be seen. In worst cases, if you have a flashlight, you can prevent him briefly from stalking you by shining it at his eyes. Never run into a hag's web, always run back to where you came from. So if you started at the shack, run back to the shack. Don't run to the main building where the hag has set up all of her traps, because if you're injured and you go into a hag's web, you're just going to go down. If you're on controller, make separate keybinds for dropping pallets and reviving, so you avoid dropping a pallet on your teammate when you're trying to pick them up. Crouching reduces your injury noises significantly. If a killer is slugging, you should split up. Do not stick together unless you are playing against the twins. Use a locker to dodge a hit. Trapper is an early game killer. Try to find him at the start of the game and follow him and try to disarm his traps. Some trappers will throw their entire game coming back to their traps and trying to reset them. You can crouch versus a Blight, Billy, or a Demo, and it will make it harder for them to hit you when they're using their M2 abilities. Around the map, there are crows, and you can use those crows to your advantage. When a crow flies up, you either know that there's a survivor near there, or the killer could be near there. On the swamp, if you see birds fly up from the boat, the killer most likely spawned there. Look behind you and chase. If a wraith is chasing you while cloaked, you can vault a window repeatedly while he's still cloaked and force them to uncloak. In most cases, you should not heal against Legion unless you need to go for a hook save. When you spawn in against a Onryo or Sadako, you need to grab a tape as soon as possible. This is going to allow you to not gain condemn stacks from the start of the game when she starts teleporting around. If you don't have one at the time, you gain condemned stacks passively whenever she teleports to a TV that you're close to. When a Wraith uncloaks, they get a speed boost when they swing. If a killer slugs, you can hop into a locker and force them to grab you and drop you. This will allow your teammates to possibly have enough time to get up. If a killer has Noed, split up and do not stay together. You make it so easy for the killer to snowball the game. If a killer is struggling to get it down on a survivor the entire game, it is safe to say that they potentially could have Noed. Prepare for this during the endgame when that last generator pops. Running side to side rapidly before you spin will increase the odds of your spin actually working. Use line of sight blockers to force a nurse to prediction blink. And if they don't prediction blink, they're going to safety blink. And in that case, try to make it to the next tile by just holding forward. Some killers moonwalk to hide their red stain. This could throw you off while you're mid-loop. Be wary of this. Avoid short tiles versus Huntress, Trickster, or Deathslinger. They can shoot over these easily. Try not to zone yourself after dropping a pallet. When Wesker vaults over a pallet, you can time it and you can slide right past him and vault right back over, forcing him to break the pallet or go all the way around. If you're the Obsession, watch out for perks like Rancor and save the best for last. Don't mind game at Shack, use these check spots. You can use check spots to stay at a downed pallet at certain loops. Don't instantly drop pallets, run through them and feel the killer out. Do they respect the pallet? Can you get another loop in? Are they going to back up or pause at the pallet? Body block killers who are tunneling to buy time for your teammates. If you're on Death Hook, you need to play more conservatively. Try to not get into chases, try to not show the killer where you are, because the next time they see you potentially could be the last time. You can use lockers to avoid aura perks such as barbecue and chili. Main buildings on maps are usually the strongest place to loop a killer. Hold W against anti-loop killers. If you made it this far, drop a sub. I want to hit 10,000 subs by the end of this year. I think we can make it. To avoid hag traps, crouch. Avoid high traffic areas when you're playing versus a hag. This includes the middle of Shack, open fields where you could be running to a generator and just have a hag trap randomly pop up and her teleport to you. Hug objects close when a spirit is phasing after you. What you can also do is after you fast vault, you can slow vault again, and this might throw the spirit off. Avoid tall grass and vaulting windows against a trapper, because this is most commonly where he's going to trap. At the start of the game, you should start on multiple gens throughout the map to create the most pressure. Sometimes spirit players will stand still to get you to panic and try to vault into them or try to run away from the pallet. Jumping into a locker when a doctor uses his static blast can avoid you gaining madness. Keep moving versus a doctor. Do not stand still. Be careful at Shack versus a doctor. Even if the Shack pallet is down, they can do this trick where they'll shock you and vault the window at the same time to guarantee that you're locked in the Shack and you can't get out, so they get a hit on you. Crouch to avoid a plague's power. If you see the last gen being worked on the HUD while you're in chase, delay the killer as much as possible. Try to drop pallets. Just try to create enough time for your team to finish that gen so you can escape. Be careful when unhooking versus a Bubba, Plague, or a Huntress, as they are the best killers at securing hook states. Double back on your scratch marks when you're going against a spirit. If the killer has Lightborn, just focus on doing gens. When you're asleep against a Freddy, you glow a bluish-whitish aura, so don't think you're hiding. You can get one of your teammates to wake you up from Freddy's dream world, or you can wake yourself up by missing a healing skill check or a skill check on a generator. A cheeky thing Freddy's tend to do is fake a teleport to a generator to get you to run off the gen to get a free hit on you. Depending on how safe or unsafe the loop, when a pig crouches, you should just leave the loop. If you get off of a hook versus a pig when you have a trap on, don't go to the first pig box that you see. And please, for the love of God, don't be injured on a pig box. Unless you have decisive strike, then you can let the pig grab you off the pig box and just jab her with DS and kind of waste her time. But this might piss the pig player off. The ultimate goal of a pig game is to boop the snoot. If you can secure boops, you're more than likely going to get hatch. Run through a clown's yellow bottles to gain a speed boost. This will also cure the effects of his purple bottle. If a clown's trying to directly hit you, point blank, assume that the clown is using the add-on pinky finger, and if he hits you directly with a bottle, he just has to swing one time and you're instantly downed. Typically, these clown players will like to camp you, and most of the time, they're not the nicest. Pre-run when you're stuck in a 3-gen situation to force the killer to commit to a chase outside of the 3-gen. If you see a Billy, Blight, or a Wesker hit an insane curve, flick, or a hug tech against someone, you gotta give them the nodders. I'm telling you, as a Billy main, I love that shit, and I'll definitely give you hatch if I see you giving me nodders after I curved one of your homies. When you're looping a Wesker, try to hug objects close. A lot of the time when he goes for a bound, it's going to mess him up and he's going to end up bumping into the object instead of grabbing you. Some killers will fake their M2 ability in order to zone you so they can get a free M1 on you. Don't let Oni hit you at the start of the game. Make sure you are putting a pallet between you and him and trying to not get hit. Avoid excessively vaulting when you do get hit against an Oni, because this just gives him more blood orbs. And the quicker you give him blood orbs, the quicker he enrages and he's able to get his demon dash ability. And with that ability, he can potentially snowball the entire game by just instantly downing a bunch of people. What I've noticed when trying to hit skill checks is trying to aim for the center of the skill check for the most consistent results. I'm still not the best at hitting skill checks, to be fair. When you're going against a Deathslinger, look behind you and chase, and whenever he raises his weapon, try to dodge side to side. A lot of this time, this is going to be a harder shot for a Deathslinger to pull off. Be aware of small gaps versus a Deathslinger, Huntress, or a Trickster, because a lot of the time, if you think they can hit you through it, a good player can actually hit you through it. You can emote tech at a pallet to fake a killer into thinking that you're going to vault the pallet. When you're going against a twins player, you need to stick in pairs of 2, because when you're injured, if Victor is downing someone, the other person needs to be there in order to kick them and try to revive them as quick as possible. You can hop into a locker if you're far away from Charlotte to force Victor to search the locker and giving you the opportunity to escape. The best thing you can do against a hit and run killer is to heal. A lot of the time, these killers have weaker chase powers, so they rely on you being injured. If Victor attaches to you, don't run near your team. This gives Charlotte heartbeats and allows her to gain information on where your teammates are at the time. Don't vault the window right after you get unhooked, because you might get grabbed. After vaulting a window versus a Nemesis player, crouch. Crouch at the higher end of a pallet to avoid a Nemesis tentacle. Fake like you're dropping a pallet versus a Huntress, Nemesis, Billy to get them to pull their power up. You can blind a Pinhead when he casts his chain. Spinning in circles makes it harder for a Pinhead to land a chain, as well as using line of sight blockers. At the start of the game, it takes 90 seconds for a chain hunt to start. If you're on controller, make sure you have separate keybinds for removing chains and vaulting pallets. Don't mess around at the exit gate versus a Pinhead, Wesker, Twins, or Deathslinger. Changing elevation against an artist is one of the strongest things you can do, as well as holding W. You can run through a Sadako when she is demanifested. If there are 2 lockers side by side when you're going against the Dredge, only lock one of them, as they will only teleport to that specific locker that is locked. A side note, if you hop in the other locker, next to the one that is locked, the dredge will actually teleport to the locker and grab you out of the locker instead of teleporting to the locked one. You can stand still or crouch to avoid Skull Merchant's drone rays. That was 100 tips I wish I knew before starting playing DBD. If you guys have any suggestions for any new players, let them know down in the comments. And if I get enough comments on this video, I might make another 100 tips. If you're newer to DBD and kind of lost, you can always stop by my Twitch channel, and I'm always playing games with viewers and just explaining overall strategies for a lot of the game. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys drop a like and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to watch this. It means the world to me. And as always, stay safe, homies. I'm going to catch you in the next video.